Hey everyone, I hope you're all good today. Um, I can see, we've got a few people joining here already, but before we dive into the content today, always good to give a few minutes for other people to join the session live. So while we're waiting, I'll just quickly introduce our speaker for the session today. So I'm sure many of you will already be aware of him because he is very active on LinkedIn, pushing updates about Google Ads and a lot of updates about the Demand Gen campaign. So very glad to have Thomas Etchell here today to discuss all things Demand Gen. So how are things with you, Thomas?
Thanks, James. Nice to be here.
You did another webinar this week, so this is your second kind of webinar of the week. Tuesday,
yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah, I did 2 days ago already one on LinkedIn with Miles McNair and Adrian Decker, but it was not about Google Ads. It was more about LinkedIn. We talked about LinkedIn growth, how we became, how we grew an audience on LinkedIn, what content works there organically, obviously. And yeah, we shared some insights there. What can also work for others if they want to be more active on LinkedIn, try to get the reach a bit higher on their posts. And yeah, was pretty nice. We also had a lot of people there and had good feedback.
That's an impressive panel to have yourself, Adrian, and Miles there. I know Adrian was our previous webinar guest where we talked about PMAX campaigns, but are there any plans for you guys to meet up in person sometime, or is it you're going to stick to the virtual events?
Yes, so actually, I think it was revealed already, but actually we both go to the Ad World experience in Bologna in October. He will be a speaker. I'm invited to go to the Ad Clinic panel. That's like a live Google Ads audit that we do there on the event, and we will meet there in person. Me and Adrian the first time.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's gonna be cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the first time that we meet. But of course, we are texting almost every day on LinkedIn, also with Miles. So we're pretty close on that. First time in person.
Yeah, and one of the I saw you post about it. There was a lot of people post about it. Just before we kind of move into the housekeeping, big news in the Google Ads world with third-party cookies being delayed yet again by Google, so pushing it back from 2024 to 2025. Did that come as a surprise to you? Do you think they are actually going to do it in 2025?
So I already thought that they're gonna postpone it because I mean, if you remove third-party cookies, it has so many implications that I think it's not so easy also for Google to manage it. Me and my company were working for Matt. We were already trying to get some information about audience APIs for like remarketing campaigns for Google Ads. That's also like implicating third-party cookie fade out. And Google always told us, yeah, we don't have any information yet about it. So we were like, okay, Google is lagging a bit behind. So it was not really a surprise for us that they delayed it. And I think they're gonna delay it again next year because I think it's so hard and it's so many implications technically also for Google that I think they need more time for that. Yeah, good for us. We can still get time ahead and implement more enhanced conversion, console mode, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So a bit more breathing time for everyone. And yeah, like you said, if Google's track record is anything to go by, probably going to be pushed back again in 2025, but we shall see. So we have had a few more people join the session now. So I'll get going. So again, welcome everyone. Very glad to have you here, either at the live session or if you're watching back on demand. For those that don't know, I'm James. I'm the content manager here at Lunio, and I'll be hosting the webinar today, asking questions and attempting to keep us on track for time. So we're aiming for around 50 minutes to get through the content that we've got today about demand gen campaigns. And that will leave us around 10 minutes at the end for a Q&A session with Thomas, which I'll say more about in a second. We've got a lot to cover, but we should be able to get through it all. So a few bits of housekeeping. We are recording the session today, and it will be available to watch back on demand. I'll just bring this first slide up on screen here. But if you have any questions for Thomas, please do pop them into the Q&A tab that you can see in Goalcast rather than the main public chat, just because your question might get lost or buried in the public chat. So it's better if you have a specific question just to put it into the Q&A section. And like I said, we'll try and get round to as many of those as we can at the end of the session. And we will also have our team here at Lunio behind the scenes for questions via the chat as well. I'm also going to direct your attention towards the Docs tab that you can see here in Goalcast, and I'll be pointing you towards that Docs tab at relevant parts of the session today, where you can get more context and some free resources too that are relevant to some of the content we'll be covering today. Just while we're on that topic, in the Docs section, you can also find the link to Thomas's Top PPC Updates LinkedIn newsletter. So if you haven't already subscribed to that, I'd highly recommend doing that. Thomas, you publish an update in that newsletter at the end of each month, right?
Yeah, exactly. On the first of every month, I'm gonna cover like the best PPC updates that happened in the month. And exactly, I did already 2 episodes, so it's quite new, but I have already more than 10,000 subscribers there. Yeah, so if you want
very impressive to have
use
10,000
that
subscribers with 2 editions. But yeah, we're coming to the end of April, so you'll have a new one soon, next week in May.
Yes,
right?
exactly. 1st May, I'm gonna drop the 3rd one. Yeah.
So yeah, go subscribe to that and be on the lookout next week for Thomas's 3rd edition. So during the session today as well, we'll also be running a few audience polls, which you can vote for in the polls tab. So please do give us your responses there. Usually you'll see a notification pop up whenever a new poll is open for responses. So you can respond by clicking on the polls tab. So on that note, I'm just going to bring the first poll up on screen here. So I'm going to open it and then also bring it up on screen. So this is a news piece. So last week, Google introduced generative AI tools for demand gen campaigns, allowing you to create image assets from text-based prompts. And the question is, are you likely to use this feature? So Thomas, have you experimented with this yet? Are you excited about this? What's your take on this AI functionality?
Yeah, so I experimented with it in PMax campaigns, obviously. So it worked quite well. Like if you really use like detailed prompts and you know already more or less how how the creative should look like, then you can really get pretty much nice images out of it. For Demand Gen, I haven't used it yet because it was pretty new and it's for US accounts, English speaking for now. Yeah, another thing there is for sure that that Google gave like Demand Gen as 2nd campaign type, these AI tools. The first campaign who got it was PMax. And that points us a bit in the direction that Demand Gen campaigns are getting prioritized by Google for sure. So I think after PMax, this is going to be the 2nd most liked campaign type and will stick around for some more years. So yeah, I think everyone should try it because it will be important in the next year for sure. And the campaign type is also getting pushed 100%. So if you I think in the earlier you try it, the earlier you use it, the better it will get for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really interesting point, about the fact that this is a clear indication from Google that demand gen is going to be a priority for them moving forward. And although it's relatively new, in the coming months and years, we're likely to see adoption rates kind of continue to grow for demand gen. Based on the response to the poll here, seems like most people are kind of on the fence. Few people not interested at all in trying it. And there's, likewise, a few more people willing to experiment with the AI tools, but definitely we're probably going to see significant improvements in that area as well, as generative AI gets better. So that's kind of the basic housekeeping out of the way. So I'm just going to briefly get into the agenda that we're going to go through today. So we have got 12 points to cover on the agenda. So firstly, we'll be looking at what demand gen campaigns actually are. Next, we'll quickly talk about demand gen versus the older discovery campaign type. Then we'll cover common pitfalls to avoid with demand gen campaigns. After that, we'll discuss how to optimize first-party lookalike and custom audiences. Then we'll move on to how to choose the right demand gen bidding strategy. After that, Thomas will cover the crossover between meta campaigns and demand gen. And during that section, we'll be covering a tip that can save you a lot of hours of time and effort to give your demand gen campaigns a big head start by leveraging data and existing creative that you've got in meta already and porting that across to demand gen. But once we finish that, we'll go on to look at demand gen ad placements on the YouTube home feed. And also we'll cover some best practices for excluding placements and YouTube channels through demand gen. Then Thomas will explain why demand gen clicks don't always appear as users in GA4. And during that section, Thomas will share a framework he's built to get a more accurate view of the true number of clicks you're generating from your demand gen campaigns using a formula for a custom column. So it's definitely worth sticking around for that. After that, we'll look at how to boost click-through rates by adding site links to campaigns. And towards the end of the session, we'll cover average invalid traffic rates for demand gen campaigns. And we've actually got some exclusive, never seen before Lunio data revealing the levels of invalid traffic we're currently seeing across the demand gen campaigns we protect. And then lastly, we'll wrap up when Thomas gives us his advice on how to troubleshoot underperforming demand gen campaigns. So if you've tried everything and you're still not getting the results you want from demand gen, Thomas is going to talk us through a 5-step checklist that's kind of worth going through to try and isolate where the problem is potentially coming from in your campaign. As I mentioned before, when we get through all the content, we will have that Q&A session at the end with Thomas, so you can ask your own questions. Now, that's everything on the agenda for today. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide here. And just to set us up and provide some context for those who might be newer to demand gen, I'm just going to give a very quick overview of what this campaign type actually is. I would say if you want a more in-depth look, be sure to check out the Lunio blog in the docs tab. It's titled Google Demand Gen Campaigns, Specs, Examples, and Tips. And currently that is actually one of our most popular blogs on Lunio. So there's a clear interest and growing search volume around this topic online. But anyway, in essence, demand gen campaigns are essentially Google's answer to mid to top of funnel awareness campaigns that you can run on paid social platforms like Meta and LinkedIn. Demand gen campaigns are fully automated, similar to Performance Max, but the crucial difference is there are no paid search placements within demand gen campaigns. Instead, ads are served across the placements you can see on the slide here, which includes YouTube Shorts, YouTube in-stream ads, YouTube home feed, Google Discover, and Gmail as well. So rather than putting your ads in front of people who are actively searching for your products or services, with demand gen campaigns, you're putting your ads in front of people who are likely to be interested in them in an effort to win new customers who aren't already aware of your brand. So to very briefly quote Google's documentation, they say, with demand gen, your best performing video and image assets are integrated across our most visual entertainment focused touchpoints, YouTube, YouTube Shorts, Discover, and Gmail. These products reach over 3 billion monthly users as they stream, scroll, and connect. So obviously huge potential reach here with demand gen. And I think that kind of covers us for the basics. So Thomas, I'm going to pass over to you here. So could you talk us through the key differences between demand gen campaigns and the older discovery campaigns? Some of those differences are listed on the slide here, but it might be good to talk those through.
Exactly. So kind of like with the upgrade of discovery to demand gen campaigns, Google was like telling to Meta, okay, guys, we're coming for you. The game is on. So they said like, and we're ready to enter the entertainment space on Google properties, meaning that like all ad placements that you have with demand gen are Google owned properties. And the big advantage that you have is that there are no sketchy websites that your ads get placed on. So it's pretty the audience is pretty real, let's call it like this. You still can have bots, that can be, that is also the case, but it's still more safe than other campaign types. And yeah, then I think one of the big changes is, of course, YouTube Shorts. That we hadn't that before with discovery campaigns. For example, also, yeah, YouTube Shorts and in-stream ads for video. That's new, and it's also one of the biggest changes. Demand Gen campaigns, they also allow now, for example, image, video, product ads together in one single ad group. Discovery campaigns, before you just had image or product feed ads. And for example, with the Demand Gen campaigns, you can also now experiment A/B creatives. That's also new. And one of a big surprise for, I think, for all of us was that after the upgrade from discovery to Demand Gen, Google said, okay, we give you max clicks bidding back. Like normally we had it just for search, and now they say, okay, you also can have it for Demand Gen campaign, which is surprising because it's a kind of fully automated, innovative campaign type. But yeah, you can use it. I will talk later about it. Also, a really nice thing was that Google introduced Demand Gen to the attribution reports. So if you go to Tools and Settings, Attribution, then you can see where the Demand Gen campaigns is in your conversion path. So if it's part of any touch point, that might be also interesting, because it can be that your Demand Gen campaigns have like 0 conversions. But if you look at the attribution model and the conversion path, it might be that your Demand Gen campaign is assisting conversions to your search campaign, to your PMAX campaign, whatever. So having this attribution report, I think it's a pretty nice insight to get and see the unobservable performance that you were not able before. So that's really cool. And the last but not least, of course, the lookalikes audiences. This is something that's only working for Demand Gen right now. So I think Google needed, of course, to push this campaign type. So they gave it as a candy and said, okay, guys, if you want to go with Demand Gen, we give you lookalikes, so you can pretty much test it out. Yeah, I think it works well, but I'm also going to tell about it later. And yeah, as we said before, the AI tools that got announced, like that we can use prompts to create creatives. That's also very new for Demand Gen, and obviously in the discovery we didn't have that. So yeah, it's a pretty innovative campaign type with a lot of features and a lot of measurement and insight data that we have here. Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, as you mentioned, Thomas, we're going to get into lookalike audiences in a bit. We're going to look at bidding strategies. Yeah. But before we get into the technicalities and kind of, the nuts and bolts of things, could you just give us a broad overview of your own experience with Demand Gen campaigns so far? Like, do they live up to all the hype that Google is pushing them around, or in what context have you seen these perform best?
Yeah, so it obviously always depends on every account. That's a universal rule that we have. But I've seen them work in B2B lead gen. I've seen them work in B2C lead gen, and I've seen them work in e-com retail. But I also have seen them not work so well in B2B lead gen. It always depends then how well your creatives are, how rich they are. Also, like how much time you really put in audience creation, how really detailed lookalikes segments you got, and things like that. But also it needs time. So after one month, obviously, you still don't have a clear picture of the performance. So you need time with Demand Gen campaigns. But I've seen them work pretty well in all kind of sectors. But of course, I've also seen them not work well in B2B, for example, because I think a bit that Demand Gen campaigns are like in Google property, like in the entertainment space. So I think it's maybe a bit more for B2C, like we have in TikTok, a bit like we have in Meta, a bit. I think many people are not like browsing during work, like on YouTube. Obviously, sometimes we do, but normally it's not really the channel. it's more B2C because you go there for entertainment. So I think demand gen campaigns might work better for B2C, but it will always depend. You need to test it out always.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm just going to quickly just move on to the next slide here. So I thought it would be good and worthwhile covering the pitfalls early on, the kind of key things to avoid. So there's kind of 3 points on this slide here. But Thomas, how would you summarize what people tend to get wrong when setting up their demand gen campaigns?
Yeah, so exactly. So one pretty big thing is demand gen campaigns. They were designed to be a single campaign in the account. So you should have one single campaign unless you have different objectives and things like that. But the campaign type was made to be a single campaign. That's why Google gave us, for the first time ever, location and language targeting on ad group level. So that has never been before around in Google Ads, right? So we never could that before. And because of this single campaign type strategy, Google gave us like the possibility to use location and language targeting. And this makes also major competition to Meta ads because there you could do it. So as I said, unless you don't have a different marketing objective, you should use one demand gen campaign. And don't split it up in smaller ones, because then your daily budget will get split up, and the data set is not really working anymore for the demand gen campaign. Yeah, even if it's a automated campaign type, there is still a lot of room for optimization that we're gonna show also later. So some advertisers they forget about it, especially if they worked for the first time with demand gen campaigns. Also, for example, testing different audience segments is really important, that people normally also forget to do. You can have really nice insights to all audience segments, so you can really see which one works, which one not. Similar to Meta ads campaigns, you should not just set demand gen campaigns up and never touch them again. But you can also try to rotate creatives. You can test which one worked better, which one less, which one worked for Meta, and things like that. So it's not like you should not use it. You should not leave it forever there. You really need to also put hands on, like on search, like on PMax. And I think that those are pretty big pitfalls that can be avoided and should be avoided, like to have a good performance then later.
Yeah, really good point. Like just because it's automated doesn't mean that you can kind of
exactly.
let it run and forget about it. Maybe one day in the future we'll get to that point. We're definitely not there yet. So
hopefully not.
Yeah. Let's just move on now. So again, we've been talking about these lookalike audience segments, but just before I pass over to you, Thomas, I'm just going to give the audience here a very quick overview of the different audiences you can use with demand gen campaigns. So the first key thing to mention here, as we've already spoken about, is demand gen campaigns give you the option to use those lookalike audience segments. So those are audiences that share similar characteristics and behaviors as those from one of your existing first-party audience lists, such as your remarketing list or customer list. And you can refine these lookalike audiences to be narrow, meaning they'll reach 2.5% of the users in your target location that are most similar to your original seed list. You can select them to be balanced, meaning they'll reach 5% of the users in your target location that are most similar. And Google defaults to a balanced lookalike segment unless otherwise adjusted. And then lastly, you've got a broad lookalike segment, meaning it will reach 10% of the users in your target location, most similar to the original seed list. So as we said, lookalike audiences should feel similar to other lookalike audiences you might work with on Meta. And, I think it's clear their intention was to kind of mimic that feel and functionality. So definitely worth experimenting with when it comes to demand gen campaigns. In addition, you can also select other first-party segments, such as your remarketing and existing customer list. And lastly, you can also select third-party audiences through Google as well, like in-market segments or custom segments. So when you combine all these, you can create a very strong first-party lookalike and third-party audience list. And the advice from Google is to use first-party lookalike and custom segments in combination to kind of drive optimal performance. But you can also consider experimenting with lookalike only audience targeting, as kind of Thomas has pointed out in his post that's on the slide here. So now that we've covered the basics of the audiences and what's on offer, I'll pass over to you, Thomas. So what would your advice be when it comes to working with demand gen audiences? And are there any that you've seen tend to perform best?
Yeah, so I also recommend like using all like relevant segments together at the beginning when you launch a demand gen campaign. Like you can put them together at ad group level, because demand gen models, they learn at ad group level. So that's also important.
Nice.
So once you put all together your segments, let's say you have a nice in-market third-party data, you have a nice first-party data, maybe your CRM list or website users, and then you create a lookalike audience, for example, from your let's say last 30-day purchaser. You put like a seed list of broad, for example, or narrow, depending how big your conversion list is, and then you try to gather all these data together in one audience signal, and then you start running the campaign. Why is that recommended? Because later in the next slide, I will show you then how to check out which of those audience segments that you put in your whole audience signal list, in a whole audience, works better and which one not. So based on that data, you can later decide, okay, I'm gonna remove a bad performer, I'm gonna stick more with a top performer. And because demand gen gives you pretty nice data on which audience really worked well. I also recommend, like, if you don't have a lot of budget, you can just create one lookalike audience from, also here again, if you're from for example, from your converters, if you are a big company and you have a lot of converters, then you can take the seed list and say, okay, I'm gonna put like a narrow lookalike audience out of it. If you're a smaller company that don't have so many conversion data, then you can use, for example, people who users who made like a small engagement or add to cart, and then you put it in your lookalike seed as a broad, for example. So you already have like a big audience that you can work on, and it's a lookalike on users that clicked add to cart, for example. So here in that strategy, it's really working for big companies or small companies, depending how big your data set is. But here you can pretty much play around with your lookalike audiences. And once you have your lookalike audience, you can just try the demand gen campaign with that lookalike audience, because that's the most, let's say, the most accurate ones and tend to have the highest conversion rate and the highest CTR rate, what I've seen. The only thing is that if you, as I said at the beginning, if you put them all together normally in the demand gen campaign, then Google tries to spend more money on in-market audiences, for example, because they have like a bigger reach, they're like bigger. So it's really important. If we go on the next slide, James.
Yep. To
exactly here to see which segment really worked well and not. And here I'm gonna show you this one I found like at the very beginning when demand gen came out. I found like this big optimization strategy that everyone should use. And here, for example, Google Ads gives you, like, for every demand gen audience segment, it gives you it gives you all the metrics that you need. The only thing, it's pretty hidden. So I'm going to show you now. I'm going to explain you now how to find this. So if you navigate to your demand gen campaign and then you click on audiences, then you will see on top, you will see like the full audience performance. So like all the audiences that you put together in one, you will see as a audience performance. But this is not really important for us, because here you don't see anything detailed and split up. So if you then scroll down a bit on your Google Ads interface, you will see audience segments, and here you can have a little show table, it's called. And if you open it, this show table, then you will have all single segments that you use in your audience together, and each of these audience segments will have the own CTR, click, view through conversion data, and so on. So in this table, you can see pretty much everything. For example, how much your CTR of your lookalike audience is, how high your CTR for your in-market is, how high your CTR for detailed demographics, whatever is, and how big the conversion rate is, and how many conversions, for example, lookalike audience got, and things like that. So here you can really compare each segment to each other. And you normally see pretty quick which segment performs. I mean, you all work with Google Ads, so you also have the eye for that. So you see, for example, the in-market audience, let's call it ticket seller, it's not working. So what you can do now, so Google is quite smart, because if you click then on this segment and try to remove it, Google will tell you, no, that's not possible. It's not. But the big workaround is you just go back to your audience, and then you check your in-market or your whatever, wherever you need to look, and then you remove this ticket seller audience outside of your big segment, and then you save again, and that's it. So what you just did is you removed your little segment out from your audience of your big audience of the Demand Gen campaign by just circumventing Google's mechanism to not remove it directly out. It's a bit complicated. I did like a whole LinkedIn post about it, but this is, I think, one of the biggest optimization you can do, and it's also important because you need to know which audience segments are working and which one not, and then you kick out the ones that didn't work and you leave the ones that work.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really good point.
It works really well.
And, nice. I'm just going to move on to this. On the screen here, we can see 4 different bidding strategies available for Demand Gen campaigns. And some there's a meme here as well, which may or may not resonate with some of our audience here today. So Thomas, could you talk us through each bid strategy and when it makes sense to use each one? And are there any other things marketers need to be aware of when it comes to the different bidding strategies available for Demand Gen?
Yes, sure. For example, max clicks was made for advertisers who, in the nature of their business, they cannot track sales or cannot track leads. So so it only tries to get relevant traffic to your website. I would, as Google says, I would not use it if you track conversions. Then stay away from max clicks. Google also says that the max clicks minimum budget is $100 a day. But that's, I've seen it work also with way less, so don't worry about that. Target ROAS bidding obviously is, you should use it if you know your margins of your product, of your service. If you, I don't know, if you really want your Demand Gen campaign to go on performance, to go a bit lower funnel. Here, you can use, for example, if you don't know how much target ROAS you should set, once you switch to that bidding strategy, you can use your normal 30 days target ROAS of your account. And once you reach 50 conversions, you can try to scale it up. Yeah, that should work. And target ROAS can not be used in the beginning, so you have to go with conversion or CPA. Because it's as Google says, it needs more data sets and data, so it will only be unlocked later. What you can use in the beginning for lead gen, I recommend it, is target CPA, obviously, for Demand Gen campaigns. If you know your target acquisition goal, your cost also, then you can use it here. here we need to pay attention a bit on how high we set, for example, our daily budget if we have CPA. Google says we need 10 to 15 times your CPA as daily budget. I've also seen it work with less, so also here don't worry. But it should be at least 5 times higher. So 5 times your CPA should be your daily budget. Yeah, but if you're lucky, it can also be less. But 15 times for me, it's a bit too much because yeah, Google always goes, of course, with the safe and goes on the safe side. Yeah, but it works with also less. And I've seen on LinkedIn also people who texted me that they say it worked for them also with less than 10. I've also seen it. And obviously we have max conversion. That's easy if you just want to try out maybe the demand gen at the first time. You don't have any specific goals in mind, any specific target acquisition costs, and yeah, you can just go ahead with that, gather some conversions, and I will. Or also Google says, and also seen it, you should not switch to CPA or ROAS before you get 50 conversions with that bidding strategy. Yeah, but also here it depends. Maybe your account has 50 conversions in 3 months, so you can also reduce that number here. You always have to see it a bit in the depending on how big your account is. Yeah, but as a rule, 50 conversions you should gather before you switch to CPA or ROAS.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's a little note on the slide here as well, just about that you want to be careful about changing your bidding strategy and then kind of trying to evaluate performance immediately. Like you will need to give it a bit of time before deciding whether that switch was worthwhile doing or not. So just something to be careful with. So moving on to the next slide. So we have mentioned Meta a lot here. And when I was speaking with you, Thomas, and we were kind of preparing for this webinar, I thought this was a really interesting point that you raised here about the fact that there is significant crossover with Meta campaigns. So demand gen campaigns have Meta-like ad formats, which include video ads, single image ads, or carousel ads. So what should marketers know about these ad formats, and what should they know about the significant degree of crossover that exists between Meta campaigns and demand gen campaigns?
Yeah, exactly. So in general, if you're running Meta ads already, then demand gen campaigns are for sure like a good addition for you, because there are so many synergies that you can use. I'm gonna drop now like one optimization tip that not many know. It's first of all, you can use, for example, if you're running Meta ads, you can use your Meta customer data. So for example, purchaser or leads, and download it, and then you go to your Google Ads account, upload it, and once they're uploaded, you take them as a seed list for your lookalikes, and then create a demand gen campaign. So basically, you download your purchaser from Meta, and then use them as lookalikes for your Google demand gen campaign. It's a pretty nice strategy that everyone should test out. Yeah, I have not announced. I think I've announced it on LinkedIn today, but just in a small post. Not many people are aware of this, but this works really well. Yeah, and then another tip out of that is, once you have this Meta customer data as a lookalike, you can also add your lookalikes on purchases, for example, and then you have pretty much the highest maximum reach out of your most specific audience you can target ever, because you take the converter lookalike from Meta, the converter lookalike from Google Ads, and that's your perfect audience. It won't get better in any Google Ads campaign, except for search, obviously, because you can target keywords with exact match and you know what they're searching. But this is really cool, and everyone should try it out. And yeah, secondly, you can of course use, for example, your best creatives that worked in Meta, let's say ads or organic, it doesn't matter, and you can test them in demand gen campaigns. So that means you cut already out all these data-driven decisions that you would have to do with demand gen campaigns, because you already know what worked in Meta, what didn't work. So it's kind of the same engagement type. And then you use those best performers for your demand gen campaigns. So you already have pretty nice optimized creatives, and use them and try them out. And if you see like also good results on the demand gen campaign, then you can see, okay, my audience is pretty much similar to Meta's audience. It works on both sides, so I can take this strategy and still scale it. Yeah, you can of course A/B test creatives that you can do with the new attribution setting that's in the Google Ads account. And yeah, there are so many synergies between those two platforms. I think also with TikTok there might be good synergies that you can use. But definitely everyone should try out this Meta customer data optimization. That's nice. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, there's so much that you can leverage from Meta. So kind of do everything that you can, and take that advice from Thomas to kind of give your demand gen campaigns a head start. So I am conscious of time now, so we'll try and get through some of these the final slides, as quick as we can, to allow some time for Q&A at the end. So very quickly, we're just going to talk about the YouTube ad placements on the YouTube home feed in demand gen campaigns. So, I do enjoy this SpongeBob meme here because it's very true. YouTube are always looking for ways to cram more ad placements into the free version of the app and website. My public service announcement to everyone here would be to pay for YouTube Premium if you aren't already doing so. It will change your life, not having to sit through all the ads and the videos. But anyway, that's besides the point. Back to the topic of demand gen campaigns. I believe that shopping feed ads being placed on the YouTube home feed are another unique feature to demand gen campaigns, which is quite cool. So Thomas, could you just briefly talk us through why you see it as being such a big advantage to have that placement in your campaign?
Yeah, exactly. So I posted about this also in the early stages when demand gen came out, and I found it pretty interesting because Google never really mentioned this placement like a lot, let's say, or like never focused on mentioning this placement. And the big advantage of having YouTube home feed ads is it's a very brand safe environment for your ad. It's like a clean placement. You don't have any sketchy YouTube channel that are worry your brand or anything else. So those placements are pretty safe normally, especially for sensitive brands. So yeah, this is a pretty nice placement. Normally it can be on top or it can be also as an in-feed. So yeah, it's
nice.
a really brand safe placement.
So we've talked about what could be a really great YouTube placement there on the home feed, but that does not mean that all YouTube placements are great. And obviously there are a lot of YouTube channels out there that probably aren't worth paying to advertise on, but the tricky part is finding those to begin with. And it's worth noting that Google haven't made it as easy as it could be to exclude some of those channels and placements. It does involve a bit of effort on the part of we the advertisers to clean up those placements to optimize performance. So Thomas, on the slide here, we've got the workaround that you've created for excluding specific YouTube placements from your demand gen campaigns. So could you just talk us through this workaround that you found and why it's important to keep on top of those placement exclusions?
Yeah, exactly. Also here in early stage, I found that Google will show us every placement on YouTube or every channel where the ads served, and also with a lot of metrics columns. And here I found like, okay, Google already gives us this option, but also here we had the same problem. If you clicked on one channel or one ad served placement and you wanted to exclude it, it gave you error. So meaning Google didn't want us to exclude sketchy or whatever placements that we don't like. So I created this workflow where we basically download first all of these YouTube placements, and we can export it to a Google Sheet. Then we can filter on low performing, for example, conversions. It's 0 and cost is 20, or bot placements where CTR is more than 100%. So we can filter out all this data. And once we defined which channel URLs we want to exclude, you just copy everything, and then you navigate to Google Ads, go to content suitability, and under the YouTube placements, you just have to copy to paste it inside, and everything is perfect. And you just exclude them on your account level, and they never bother you again. Also, this is a nice optimization you can do. And yeah, I also created there like a crowdfunding project at the time where many advertisers could put their own channel URL that they didn't like, or maybe was a bit fishy or bot traffic. And then all together we reached, I think, 6,000 placements, and everybody could exclude it. And it was a nice project, yeah.
Nice.
So we had like good data then later.
Yeah, so just while we're on the topic of exclusions, you can also find Lunio's 100K exclusion list for Google display campaigns. You can find that in the Docs tab to kind of give your display campaigns an instant uplift by excluding low quality sites and kind of junk mobile app inventory. We've also included lots of low quality YouTube channels in that 100K exclusion list as well. So you might be able to use that in conjunction with Thomas's method here to kind of build a strong placement exclusion list. Just in the interest of time, Thomas, I know we were going to talk about the data discrepancies between GA4 and demand gen campaigns. I think we're probably going to have to skip that and move on to the site link topic, if that's okay with you. Just to
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I'm just going to bring up this slide here, and we will, if you could just kind of very briefly, Thomas, let us know what marketers should know about adding site links to demand gen campaigns and how you've seen those influence click-through rates.
Yeah, so exactly this optimization was part of also my series that I did on LinkedIn on how to optimize demand gen campaigns. And I pretty much saw this like without knowing that it existed, that you can add site links to your demand gen campaigns. So obviously it's good to use them just to boost CTRs, because site links obviously are here to give higher CTR or better ad quality, of course. And the higher CTR, normally also the more Google will push your ad. And yeah, I just found it very interesting that you can use them, and you should use them. You can add like up to 4 site links, and it will show on skippable in-stream ad formats for mobile devices. And so if you run a demand gen campaign, check out your site links, and if there's already something there, then you're fine. But if you haven't added them, then I recommend to do it, because let's take every optimization that we can get to make this kind of automated campaign times a bit better and a bit more controllable.
Nice. So speaking of optimization, I'm just going to very quickly present some data related to IBT for demand gen campaigns. And this is actually, as I mentioned in the beginning, exclusive data. As demand gen campaigns are relatively new, they weren't included in our channel breakdown in our 2024 wasted ad spend report. Just a quick note before I continue on here, our IBT protection for demand gen campaigns is not IP based, because obviously you can't exclude IPs from demand gen. It works on an exclusion audience model where invalid users are detected and then added to a continually growing negative audience to prevent demand gen from showing more and more ads to the same fake user. So we looked at invalid traffic rates across all demand gen campaigns we currently protect from November 2023 to March 2024. And that data set revealed that the average IVT rate for demand gen campaigns was 4.65%. And this is slightly lower than the average IVT rate for PMAX campaigns, which we found at 5.69 or 5.96%. So that's interesting. Part of the reason why we might be seeing a lower IVT rate on demand gen is because oftentimes it will spend heavily on YouTube placements. And in our wasted ad spend report, YouTube was actually one of the best performing channels in terms of having the lowest average invalid traffic rate of all the channels we looked at, which came in at 3.93%. But when we look beyond the average, we did see some considerable variability in the data. So on the low end, we were seeing some demand gen campaigns with IBT rates as low as 0.5%. And on the high end, we were seeing some demand gen campaigns with IBT rates of around 13%. And the reality is there's no way to know exactly, where your own campaigns fall within that range without auditing your traffic. So if you are interested to find out how much IBT your demand gen campaigns are currently bringing in, you can request a free 2-week traffic audit with Lunio, where we will monitor and analyze all your clicks coming through Google Ads. And at the end, you'll find out exactly where you fall within that range from 0.5 to 13%, as well as how your PMAX campaigns compare to your standard search and shopping ones. So if you're interested in that, there is a link to get a free traffic audit with Lunio in the documents section, just at the bottom, if you're interested. But either way, I thought that was a nice little data set to give an exclusive preview here. Also, if you're interested in getting a channel by channel breakdown, I know we mentioned PMAX and YouTube there. The average IBT rates across all major platforms can be found in Lunio's wasted ad spend report. Again, link to that in the docs tab. So this report was based on a data set of 2.6 billion paid ad clicks from more than 60,000 ad accounts we protect at Lunio. Specifically, we were interested in looking at the number of legitimate clicks versus invalid clicks to work out average invalid traffic rates across industries, ad channels, company sizes, and regions. The worst offenders we found for high average invalid traffic rates were LinkedIn, Twitter, and Meta. There's a lot we could say about that, but we're not going to get into it today because we don't have time. But basically, if you're spending a lot on those channels with no protection in place, it's highly likely that a significant percentage of your ad spend is going to waste. So it's well worth taking a look through that report. But just to close here, Thomas, if a demand gen campaign is underperforming, what advice would you give to help someone troubleshoot that? So you've got a kind of 5-step checklist here on the screen. So could you just talk us through what that troubleshooting process might look like?
Yeah, sure. Normally, like if let's start, if the demand gen campaign obviously is not spending, then you might have like a too restricted bidding strategy. Normally your target CPA can be the problem, or your target ROAS. Obviously you could always switch to max clicks, but that's not recommended. So you would need to lower your target ROAS or increase your target CPA in order to boost a bit the campaign. Then, for example, if you don't have any conversions, I would first check daily budgets. Maybe your CPA or your ROAS is not set like in the right format for your daily budget. As I said before, like 10, 15 is what Google recommends for CPA. So 15 times the CPA as a maximum for your daily budget, but obviously that's pretty high. So you can see what works there. I would highly recommend you also check the attribution report to see if your demand gen campaigns is like let's say secretly working, meaning that it assists other campaign types. That I've also seen many times that it has like 0 conversions, but it's part of many other assisted conversions. You need to check obviously if you have one consolidated campaign and not just small single demand gen campaigns, because that will not work. Obviously, check your audiences, as I said before. Make sure that you know which of your audience segment is working and which is not working. And based on that data, then you should optimize your audience and kick out the ones that don't work and just leave the ones that work, or also elaborate and change the one that works in other ones that might be similar and might also work. Then you always have to see and evaluate later. And creatives are really important for the demand gen campaigns, obviously. It's like the driver also a bit. And the ones, as I said before, check what works in Meta. Don't use the ones that don't work in Meta, just use the ones that work. Make some synergies there. And normally should be fine. But if you have also questions, you can drop me a message on LinkedIn if you have problems with demand gen. I can help a bit.
Nice. Thank you, Thomas. So that's it for the content. And with the time we have left, we will just address a few of the questions from the Q&A tab, and we'll try and get through as many of those as we can. Of course, as I mentioned before, if you're interested in that free traffic audit, you can scan the QR code here or go direct via the address listed on the slide here. So with that, I'm just going to go to the question list here. And I saw one question which had quite a few upvotes. Yeah, so we have this question from Steven here, Thomas. Is there any way that we can get rid of all those kids channels that are available on YouTube?
There is no like one universal exclusions, but maybe there are some websites where some channels are listed, so you just have to maybe download them and put them as account level negatives. That should work then. But there is no pretty much like just exclude. I mean, you still have content suitability exclusions that you can use, but especially for kids, it's not. I think it's not there.
Yeah. The next question is from Connor. So this is an interesting one. You know, why would you run PMax and Demand Gen together if they're both covering kind of similar Google properties?
Yeah, that's a question that we get many times. So why would you run Demand Gen next to PMax? So Demand Gen, obviously, you have way more control on your audience because PMax only uses signals. Demand Gen uses audiences, so you have a more robust audience in place. For example, PMax campaign, normally if you use a script, 70% of the spend goes to search. So you don't really use that entertainment properties in PMax properly. So if you have, for example, a budget that you want to spend in those entertainment and create more demand, then the Demand Gen campaign will work way better because you really put that money just in that placement and not in search, for example. So yeah, there's a lot more control in Demand Gen than PMax. And PMax normally goes more on search. So, and it's not true that Demand Gen goes, if they both cover all Google properties. Yeah, PMax covers all Google properties and Demand Gen just entertainment side. So not all shopping, for example, is not Google Shopping, it's not Google Search, it's not. So yeah, normally if you have like a dedicated budget to spend towards mid-funnel, then you go with Demand Gen and be safe that it's spent there and not on search or anything else.
Yeah. If you're not already doing so, it might be interesting with your PMax campaigns to run micro spend allocation script and just kind of see the breakdown of where your spend is actually going on PMax, because as Thomas said, there, a lot of it is usually weighted heavily towards paid search, and just a bit of budget spent on the other channels that Demand Gen focuses on. So we've got another question here from Tanner. So what type of content for Demand Gen have you seen work best? Is it storytelling, fear of missing out, educational? I know this is highly dependent on the context and situation, but is there anything, Thomas, you would say?
So storytelling obviously works with video ads very well. Educational can be also with single image, but also here that depends a lot on the account. What normally tends to get the most traffic, I can tell you, it's a single image normally. And carousel a bit less. But I don't have any typical like specific type of content that works. Also here, normally it depends on what content you use. Maybe if you have meta ads, then you can also see what works better there. I think there is no specific type that works better than others. That always depends on the account. Yeah.
It always depends. So this is an interesting question from Abhishek. Does it make sense to run a Demand Gen campaign for remarketing if your standard display remarketing campaign isn't working as efficiently as you'd like?
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. But in that case, I would recommend you to create one ad group for remarketing and one ad group for prospecting and leave those separated. And then that works fine. So yes.
Nice. And then this is touching on something that we've already addressed, but Yamin has asked, would a single ad group work better in a campaign or multiple?
Yeah. So that depends on obviously on the budget that you have. It makes sense if you reach like, let's say 30 conversions in only 30 days or 60 days, then it makes sense that you have one ad group and put all your ads together, because you need to bundle that data set. But for example, if you have a lot of budget and you will reach 30 conversions already next week, then you can already split them up. But normally it's a general rule. If you don't get like 30 conversion in, let's say, 3-4 weeks, then better have it in one ad group to gather the data set together.
Yeah. One other question, and then we're going to have to wrap it up after this question. We will stick around for just a few more minutes here, but can there be a cannibalization risk between demand gen components and the display part of Performance Max?
That's a good question. I think there should not be a problem, because I think like demand gen display, like image ads, they're not, so they're only serving Google property. I don't think that's making here a bit of cannibalization effect, but yeah, I would need to double check that. It's a good question, but like from the first things, I don't think that there's gonna be a big cannibalization there. Google also never talked about that, so technically I don't think so.
Nice. So I think that's it for time. We'll just need to wrap up there. I know that there was a lot of questions for Thomas, so apologies if we didn't get around to your question. We tried to focus on the questions that had the most upvotes towards the end there. But I'd just like to say big thank you to you, Thomas, for joining us today and sharing so many useful insights with the audience. So is there anything else you'd like to mention or direct people towards before we finish?
Yeah, so all the questions, if somebody wants to send questions on LinkedIn, you can go ahead. I have some time now to answer them there on LinkedIn. Yeah, and thanks a lot for so many questions, and I'm seeing them and seeing them, and yeah, pretty nice. Yeah.
So likewise, if you have any questions for us, you can contact us directly via hello@lunio.ai, and we'll be happy to help. As I mentioned previously, if you're interested in getting a demo of Lunio and a traffic audit to see where your invalid traffic is currently at, you can do so via the link in the docs tab. That's it pretty much, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in, either whether it was here at the live event or on demand. We hope to see you again in our next webinar. So take care, everyone, and all the best with your demand gen campaigns. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone. Ciao.
See ya.